60 years ago, America shook.
It was explosive.
It sounded so different. It was free. It was wild.
These are some of the last witnesses to the birth of a music that changed everything. And they still feel it.
Oh.
Like it was yesterday.
I'll never forget that. We can see those. That's a damn smash hit.
The whole place exploded.
We had sex appeal.
I'm getting this age where if I make somebody mad by telling the truth, tough.
I'm a road and you can't keep up with me.
These are the innovators, the free thinkers,
Let it all hang out.
who shocked America.
The vulgar performances of Elvis Presley.
He should not be on television.
The morals are dangerous. That's all I know. You can't get away from it. You can't clean it up because it's dirty to begin with.
Yeah, go.
They followed their own path and transformed America.
People were afraid of integration.
Rock and roll, without the nigger.
Integration is happening in our heads through our ears.
This is what we've been waiting for.
I got to put you down.
We'll continue to charge on.
I'll see you someday. Baby, somewhere hanging around.
Oh, I was shaking going on.
Today, a remarkable construction project is transforming the face of the countryside. The area below will, within the next 2 years, be the busy community of 70,000 people living in a city which was completely planned before the first house was built.
America of the early 50s, where 11 out of 13 million new homes were built in a new suburbia.
Hey, Judy! I'll find a couple of eggs this morning.
Okay, dear. Oh, but get a move on or you'll be late.
It's a great life, eh, Bob?
Communities built around a family unit, expanding in a baby boom, created by returning World War II GIs. Life was perfect.
The fathers and mothers in our hometown are just plain nice living folks.
The smoking of marijuana are tempting more and more teenage youngsters along dangerous paths.
You know, Main Street folks who say, hello, nice morning, even when it rains on Mondays.
I'm getting sick and tired of being treated like a kid.
Why be stuck with one expensive car when you can enjoy all the fun and freedom of two fine floors?
This is home sweet home to us. We feel safe and are very proud of our friendly, tolerable character.
When the colored people came into the neighborhood, I would become nauseous.
We are proud of our excellent schools that provide for the education of our children. Proud of their part in preparing our youths to face the future. Atom bombs may someday be dropped on our cities, and let us prepare for survival.
The Air Force itself has officially admitted that flying saucers exist. Space saboteurs seize control of Earthmen's minds.
Communism in reality is not a political party. It is a way of life, an evil and malignant way of life.
But one thing that America could rely on in these times was the radio, programmed with popular music of the day.
Do not forsake me, oh my darling, on this our wedding day. Wait long
not all of America was like this. Below the Mason-Dixon line, like a wayward cousin, lay America's buried past. But something was happening that would shake up not just the music, but America's way of life. Down south. Way down south.
There are things in New Orleans that you wouldn't see anywhere in the world.
Just about anything went. The gay entertainers who would dance with a boa constrictor.
Storyville was where they used to have legalized prostitution, and that lasted for about 20 years.
There were exotic dancers who could make their cleavage jump up and down in different patterns.
Man, that was my first place where I ever really get loaded on whiskey. I ain't never experienced anything like that in my life. I never want to experience it again.
New Orleans music was for dancing, for entertainment, make people move.
That the dancers are gonna be doing boom, bam, boom, bam, boom.
And I see a big fat woman with a big butt, boom, and she right in tune the bass drum. Boom, 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 you know.
If you ever listen to New Orleans music, you're gonna move.
I'm walking, and I'm talking, my music when I'm moving, and you come back to me. I'm lonely, yes I can be, I'm waiting for your company, I'm hoping, and you come back to me.
Well, it has certainly been a long time since I've been here. So where it all took place, back here? All right, great. It's a laundromat now, but back in the day, and I mean the most beautiful days, in fact, the days that began putting us on the map, it was J&M Studio, Cosmo's recording studio, owned by Cosmo Matassa. And there was Cosmo back there doing what he does. The musicians will be back in that area. Those bricks are probably the same bricks which witness all of that wonderful music. The whole call of the day was for most things to be done live. In fact, when it was time to make a fade at the end of the recording, the musicians didn't want Cosmo to turn down the knob. They wanted to just play softer and make a natural fade because they figured that that's a technical fade with the knob. And very importantly, Fats Domino's career started here, and it was 1949. He recorded The Fat Man. And it clicked on a switch that lasts for decades and decades.
Fat's debut hit is a contender for the very first rock and roll record, and its origins lay in a traditional song from the wild heart of New Orleans.
It was a drug song. That lyric was, they call me a junker because I'm loaded all the time. Dave Bartholomew, the producer, said, well, we can't sing about junkies. We're going to have to sing about the fat man.
They call me the fat man, 'cause I went to right now. All the girls, they love me, 'cause I know my way around.
Fat's rhythm proved innovative and irresistible, but not just to black audiences in the South.
Now for the big finale, the guy you've all been waiting to hear.
Through the 50s, he'd overcome the musical segregation of the time, crossing over from the black R&B chart to white audiences on the national pop chart.
You made me cry when you said goodbye. Ain't that a shame?
feel like rain.
And what was special about his rhythm that got the kids hooked was a piano triplet that underpinned Fat's biggest hits.
This little simple beat, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on his piano.
A lot of great musicians around New Orleans didn't want to play behind Fats Domino because he said his music was so simple.
People kind of made fun of them when you just play ding, 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 but that's what he did, and it made people dance.
Those simple lines completed all the way through the song.
And so even in the Deep South, even in the segregated South, whites started showing up at shows.
Oh, well, goodbye. Although I'll cry in shame.
Black concerts were coming through Memphis, and we'd go down and watch them. They made us sit upstairs, you know. It's kind of crazy, but we didn't care. And when those guys started rocking on stage, the kids jumped up in the aisle and started dancing. And I said, uh-oh, something's happening here big time.
The whites started dancing, mixing with the blacks. One thing led to another. Herbert Hardesty, Fat's saxophone player, says there was a fight every night. And the reason why is because he was causing that integration.
This rock and roll music seems to be under an awful heavy attack from all over the country. There's been riots, it's been banned in certain parts of this country and abroad. You know of any reason for that?
Well, as far as I know, music makes people happy, and that makes me happy.
You wouldn't blame it on rock and roll?
No, indeed. Let me just keep on to go back to my pipe, huh?
I saw some protesters one time, right in the midst of that era, saying, send all the Negroes back to the Congo except Fats Domino.
Fats wasn't alone in integrating audiences. Alan Freed, a DJ who popularized the term rock and roll,
everybody, how y'all? This is yours truly, Alan Freed, welcoming you.
Staged a Moondog Ball in Cleveland in 1952 for a mixed-race audience of 20,000. It was shut down by police for fears of a riot. But segregation was just part of a wider narrative in post-war America. As millions of black Americans migrated up the Mississippi corridor, bound for the industrial cities of the Northeast and Midwest.
People in Mississippi, Louisiana, they work their way to get to Memphis, and they go to St. Louis, East St. Louis, wasn't St. Louis, play East St. Louis. Then he goes to Chicago. They was trying to get to Detroit where the Ford plant was, in Chicago where the steel mill was. Sometimes it takes you 2 months to get to Chicago.
And with the people, the music migrated. This song from 1951, Rocket 88, by Jackie Brenston, another contender for the first rock and roll record, was written in Clarksdale, recorded in Memphis, and released in Chicago on Chess Records, as the blues moved upstream to the big cities of the Midwest.
When you look at it, you know, you've got Chicago, St. Louis, Memphis, New Orleans, all on a straight dotted line all the way down, and those are all pretty hip music towns all the way up. So there's something about being on this big old muddy river.
By the early 50s, Chicago was the hub of an electric blues scene rooted in a booming migrant black community.
Jimmy Reed was a guy that I was in love with. in Chicago playing the blues. He's had songs like "Oh baby, you don't have to go.
Whoa, baby, you don't have to go.
But by the mid-50s, the electric blues stars like Jimmy Reed and Muddy Waters were nudging 30 and 40. And a younger generation in these cities craved a new sound that spoke of their experience.
The blues is always losing the girl. Yeah, my baby done left me. Doo-wop gave me the idea of fulfilling my dream by getting the girl.
Blues writers were older people. They had been in the South. They had seen things that were very different, whereas the doo-wop writers were teenagers.
Baby, what y'all doing standing out here in the cold? It's freezing. Nice seeing you,
In 1953, the Spaniels were a teenage street corner group from the edge of Chicago, with a first single climbing the charts and a follow-up that would become a classic of the new doo-wop style.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go home. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go home. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it
is truly the sound of the city. It is truly the street corner symphony. You could stand under a street lamp and just sing.
We could imagine that we would be on stage and that lamp would actually brighten the whole corner and people could come and watch you and you could do your step. So we were on stage there.
Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Through the music, you could court a girl. All you had to do was sing a song. I think that women like low voices, almost like the mating call of the bull walrus or something like that.
Because I love you so. Good night.
It was our music. The lyric spoke for the things that we felt and we couldn't express ourselves. And you only heard it all the way at the other end of the dial. The little black station's 1340.
Girl, it's so
1410.
hello, hello again. Shaboom, and hoping we'll meet again. Oh, life could be a dream.
You didn't hear it on the major 950s.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer.
Or 560s.
Much is that doggy in the window.
Which were big, powerful radio AM stations, which you heard around the country, you see.
But while radio was still largely segregated, there was one technology that wasn't.
I love that girl.
1950 saw the advent of the 45 RPM jukebox. And it was this invention that helped the growth of doo-wop, as record labels used the jukeboxes as testing grounds for new releases.
Jukebox jukebox was very, very important because some of the great record labels said the black radio stations are playing it. Let's put it into the jukebox and see if kids recognize it.
My love must be a kind of blind love.
Doo-wop was the first pop music performed by teenagers for teenagers.
I can't see anyone but you.
And there were more teenagers than ever before due to increases in the birth rate around World War II.
Are the stars out tonight?
And from the mid-50s, America's older population began to feel overrun by a new adolescent attitude.
And the song is, why do folks fall in love or call themselves the teenagers?
Come on, boys, let's sing our song now.
That's a lot of you.
Yes, we can sing now.
What's your verse?
I have to make my money before my birthday.
Why do fools fall in love? And love is when the rain why do they fall in love?
Now, there's a whole strata of young people that have some money and their own tastes. They will go for things that maybe their parents don't like.
Lenny, do you realize what time it is? Oh, Mother, don't be such an old fuddy-duddy. Our young people are getting out of hand everywhere.
It changed the type of clothing they wore. It changed the type of movies they liked. It changed the way they talk.
Rock and roll is cool, Daddy, and you know it.
That was crazy music, man. That's big, Dad.
What does it do for you?
It makes you feel good inside.
Youth perceived that they had power, and through the music they were spreading messages. For me, it was a major shift.
For a newly liberated youth, there was a new form of entertainment vying for their attention.
Just look at this real big screen Westinghouse set. Why, it's big enough so the whole family can watch your favorite entertainer without anybody having to block the view.
But while TV was on the rise, it was limited to safe family fodder. With money and time on their hands, teenagers looked for their own entertainment and own hangouts. And there was one location in every town that would increasingly become theirs.
After 1950, television sales are going through the roof. Audiences in the cinemas are declining, and they're declining at an alarming rate. But teenagers, they don't want to sit at home and watch TV. The studios absolutely aim for the teen market. And they're marketing a kind of cool, which is like rebellion, but at the same time a kind of emphasis on belonging, like belonging to your gang. The great example is Marlon Brando in The Wild One, where he's kind of an individual, but he's dressed in a way that looks like he belongs to something.
Hey, somebody tell me what that means. BRMC. What does it mean?
Like Rebels Motorcycle Club.
Isn't that cute? Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got?
Hey, Kathy.
But whereas 1953's The Wild One featured a cast in their late 20s and a jazz swing soundtrack,
Well, what are you rebelling against, Johnny? What have you got? What have you got?
1955 saw the release of Blackboard Jungle. Set in an inner-city school and addressing the problems of teenage delinquents.
Excuse me, I believe I have an appointment with the principal.
Name? Name?
Richard Dadye.
My dad's character in the film, Richard Daddier, was a school teacher who was trying to get through to his students.
Bring your paper up here, West.
And they were not wanting to be educated. There was a lot of elements in the film that were quite shocking. There was an attempted rape in the library of one of the teachers by a kid who my father beat down. You know, you didn't see this in film.
So what happened?
Why, it's the first day of school, teacher.
I believe I'm 16 years of age. I said, wow, man, this kid, whoever produced this movie, got it down right the way it is in some of the neighborhood ghettos, you know. We had a guy called Mr. Mimlich. He was a biology guy. We'd throw things at him. Biology, he turned his head. We would throw things at him, spitballs. I mean, these things actually happened.
A lot of the bosses at MGM, they were quite concerned about the film representing America in a not so nice a way. The fact that juvenile delinquents, they were being depicted as the youth of America, this was quite scandalous.
Switchblade knives were very prominent at that time. This is going to be a showdown now. The gunfight at the end of the movie, as Richard Daddier starts to stalk him.
Give me that knife, West.
The rest of the classroom is motionless, and you hear that clock. Come on, boy. Come on.
End of the line, boy.
The knife drops. Palazzi picks up the knife.
Hey, Palazzi, shut up, chicken.
And that's when my character, Santini, decides to take over. And he goes and he grabs the American flag and he runs across the room and he rams the eagle into Palazzi's chest and he drops the knife.
Unlike the bikers in The Wild One, these teenagers showed their generational difference with a hatred of jazz, smashing a teacher's collection of rare swing records.
This is Cherokee. Anybody want to hear this record, huh?
Towards the end of production, the film's director, Richard Brooks, realized he needed one final element for his movie, a theme song that would speak to this generation of restless teens. And it couldn't be swing.
Richard Brooks would come to our house often at the end of the day on his way home because he lived up the street. And he was looking for a tune. I had a very, very big record collection for a young 9-year-old kid. And I played a number of records for him in my collection because Dad said I had all these unusual records.
Glenn Ford's son was like a Haley fan, you know, with a young kid.
There was 13 women and only one man in town.
I had purchased this song called 13 Women and One Man in Town, which was supposed to be the A-side on Decca. And I didn't like it, and like most kids did in those days, and I turned the thing over, and I really liked that one.
The producer says that's a terrific song. It was by chance.
I went to the premiere at the Encino Theater a few days before my 10th birthday. This song comes on, 1, 2, 3 o'clock.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7.
It was just thrilling. I mean, it was absolutely thrilling.
We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on.
The whole place exploded. The kids, when they heard that song, started jumping up and dancing in the aisles. And that never happened before.
The kids got up and started doing the jitterbug up and down the aisle.
I went to see it. Here it was coming out loud. Those big speakers in the movie theater, it sounded good. A lot better than jukeboxes. It's the only way you heard it in 45 records.
I mean, it was explosive. It just blew you right out of the... Obviously, it blew the kids out of the seat because they were dancing in the aisle.
Some theaters had to close down in the Midwest, and they couldn't show the film because the kids were so taken with it.
Many municipalities banned the movie altogether or muted the music in that first scene.
It sounded so different from anything else that was being played. Clearer, more crisp. Most of the records of that nature before were not recorded very well.
And the chimes ring 5, 6, and 7. We'll be right in 7.
They concentrated on the rhythm section. Bah! You know, this big echoey snare.
We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
Each instrument had been mic'd, which hadn't been done before. So it was the sound of it the kids identified with. I certainly did at 15.
That became the #1 hit in the United States for 8 weeks, which was never even heard of.
Rock Around the Clock was the first rock and roll song to top the national pop charts in America, with the lyrics and title perfectly selling the idea of a new, wild dance music. But while Bill Haley might have hit on the perfect message, the ex-hillbilly singer was a reluctant messenger, becoming increasingly nervous at rock and roll's association with juvenile delinquents.
Well, I think he preferred to have been a country star. I think really in his heart, that's what he really grew up with. He loved country music. He even tried it on a couple of recordings. They were okay.
He didn't dress like a rock and roller. He was kind of chunky. He didn't look like a rock and roller. And he went on to other and lesser things in a career that kind of petered out. He was in his 30s. Doesn't seem too old to me now. But by rock and roll standards, trust no one over 23.
But what also made Bill an outsider was the fact he was based out of Chester, Pennsylvania, at a time when the Mississippi Delta, and in particular a segregated Memphis, was where it was all happening.
Years ago, there's a fine line between where black people could go if you went one block left or right over here. There was no black people, other than people working. There wasn't no party. Party was right here, just where the black people were.
Thrill is gone. The thrill is gone away.
We're gonna talk about BBs.
The thrill is gone, baby.
Hey, babe, how you doing?
The thrill is gone away.
During the time when I was working here, this was all 99% black clubs. B-billing wasn't here. It was what they call honky-tonks, juke joints. Some of the back room was gambling, shooting dice and whatever. It was like the Las Vegas for the black people. Beer Street. This was the Chitlin circuit, where all the black entertainers, all along here was myself, Rufus Thomas, B.B. King, was playing on these streets. This was the Chitlin circuit. There's no more Chitlin circuit, now it's uptown.
While segregation ruled back then, one man took steps to change attitudes to a wealth of black music in the South. Sam Phillips. Hailing from a poor cotton farming background in Alabama, he quit his job as a local radio announcer to set up a unique recording studio in Memphis.
One thing that I always admired about Sam was that he had a fantastic job, a job that anybody would dream to have, and he quit it to record primarily black musicians during a time period where you couldn't even use the same bathroom. Sam grew up working in cotton fields. He never really looked at the color of someone's skin. He just felt a connection with them, and he felt a rhythm with them. You know, he shared with me that he noticed the difference in the rhythm when they were picking cotton in the fields together. I mean, that's something that most people wouldn't notice.
Love my baby, keep your business to yourself.
It was 1950, and my dad opened Memphis recording service here, and he would let black people come in for free. He would tell them, play for me, forget that I'm a white man, play for me, give me what you would do like if you were on your front porch.
For 4 years, Sam worked tirelessly, driving the back roads of the South, distributing records on his own label, all the time chasing a hit sound. But back in his office at Sun Studios, he'd often talk about finding the unthinkable. A white singer with a black voice. Unbeknownst to Sam, he'd already recorded him.
When we think of Elvis, we think of the stud, you know, the guy in the leather pants, and he's confident and arrogant and rules the world. But at that time, Elvis, he didn't have his jet black hair, he had light brown hair, he had acne. He wore a lot of pink and scarves and just really was an alien almost to most people.
But it wouldn't be the same without you.
By the summer of '54, Elvis had cut 3 demo acetates at Sun, showing potential, but yet to release a record.
Would just make me blue.
In July, Elvis came back to try his luck with another ballad of the day, but again failed to impress Sam.
There's no air conditioning in there. We're talking about July, so it's steaming hot, and tube equipment gets pretty hot. So it's getting kind of aggravated, and people are getting tired, and he said they kind of called it for a while. And that's when Scotty said Elvis and a bunch of nervous energy picked up acoustic. And he didn't say he played it, he says every time he was beating on it. And he just kind of started doing That's Right Mama by Arthur Big Boy Crudup.
Well, now that's all right, now, Mama. That's all right for you.
That night it was Bill Black here. In fact, there's a little hole in the floor where his spike came out of his upright bass.
Bill Black jumped up, not very seriously playing along. He was hooting and hollering and slapping the bass real silly.
This section of the floor here is where Scotty Moore stood. Of course, Elvis was right here.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you. That's all right, Mama. Just any way you do it, that's all right. That's all right.
Sam ran out there, you know, from that little door right there and just said, "What's going on out here? Keep doing it," and move some mics and start the tape rolling.
Well, Mom, she done told me, Papa done told me too. Son, that gal you fooling with, she ain't no good for you, but that's
think what happened really was they thought they weren't recording, and they finally loosened up, and that's how it all really came out, you know, because, you know, my dad told me a lot of times that don't pay attention to that microphone, you know, it'll scare you to death.
Sam originally cut direct to disc, and then he went to tape, but everything ended on disc. So he had a lathe. I've got the same model right over here. And so that night, Sam made a acetate of it, which is a one-sided record, and took it straight to Dewey Phillips. 2 days later, he played it on the air. And they said, oh, you know, everyone went crazy that night in Memphis. And I think he played it 14 times in a row, they said.
Man, I got her one. I got to put you in Elsa's autograph. I'm telling you, man, she's running down Main Street showing to everybody.
You could not keep from turning the radio volume up. Right now, we're going to play the next record. If you just flat drive, you're crazy.
I'm leaving town to baby. I'm leaving town to show.
You're either in your car, we drive up and down Main Street, Dragon Main as they call it, you know, and looking for the pretty girls and what have you. And when That's All Right Mama would come on the radio, you know, we turned the volume up and you could hear it in just about every car that you were passing.
People heard the voice and they couldn't quite figure out, was this voice black or white? And that song, that like wasn't a white person's song.
He did a blues song with a hint of bluegrass.
He must be black.
Forget, buddy, yes, sir. We got one of the hottest cotton picking shows in the country. Whoop, you're messing up, partner. That's right. Is that right, dears?
What confused things further was local DJ Dewey Phillips's pioneering style of programming.
In Memphis, Tennessee, and it's Friday night. Tomorrow's payday and birthday. That's a good deal.
Dewey Phillips would play 3 black songs and 2 white guys.
Oh, yes, sir. That's Opus number 1 right there, the late, great Tommy Dorsey. Yes, sir.
He would play Tommy Dorsey and follow that with Hank Williams.
I got a feeling called the blues.
He would play Hank Williams. He would play Howlin' Wolf.
Just they call me the rocker. I can rock you all night long.
So Elvis is at a movie theater seeing a movie, and they called Gladys and Vernon. Dewey said, you got to get your son. We got to put him on the air and do an interview. So they go rip him out of the movie theater. They drive him down. You know, he's terrified.
And one of the first things he does on the program is says, what high school do you go to? And because people in Memphis will know by what high school you go to, whether you're black or white. And shocking to people's ears, this white guy was playing a black style of music. And the phones lit up like mad. I mean, he was really capturing a zeitgeist of the moment.
Oh, give me land, lots of land, under starry skies above. Don't fence me in.
Back in those days, the white singers had no movement on stage. They would just come out and sing their ballads because there wasn't any rock and roll. The word was spreading pretty fast about this Presley kid. He's something else. You got to see this guy.
Well, there you go, you think you're so pretty. And just because your mama thinks you're hot,
I emceed his first show in Memphis.
you think you got something.
It was on the back of a flatbed truck. It was opening of a shopping center in East Memphis. And they'd hired me to be the disc jockey. When I introduced him and he got up on that stage, he started moving around.
This thing in town. Well, just because you think you got.
When he came off, the kid said, more, more. And Elvis asked Sam Phillips. He said, Mr. Phillips, why are they screaming? What's going wrong? Am I doing something wrong? He said, no, man, just keep on doing it. Shaking your body, shake your leg, man. Shake anything. They like it. They like you.
I liked him. He was sexy. He was charming. But his moves, I think that's probably what made him to begin with.
Scotty Moore says that Elvis was shaking his leg, his pants were loose, and people could see his privates jiggling inside, and that's why the girls were screaming.
Elvis broke big. But only in the South.
You saw me standing alone.
Making it as far as the Louisiana hayride by 55. The king was but a local prince. And there would be another pretender to the crown.
Could I say something?
Go ahead.
Let it all hang out with the beautiful Little Richard from down in Macon, Georgia. I am the king of rock and roll. Ow, ow, ow. My. I just had to do that. Now I feel so much better. I got it out.
In the early 50s, Little Richard cut his teeth on the Chitlin Circus, first as a female impersonator, and then as a singer with his hot band, the Upsetters. In 55, he sent a demo to producer Bumps Blackwell, who thought he could be the next Ray Charles,
Every hour,
and invited him to New Orleans J&M Studios.
every hour in the day.
After a frustrating morning session, trying out slow ballads, they took a break
Every hour,
and headed to a nearby supper club.
every hour in the day.
This is the legendary Dewdrop Inn, the desired location for the duration. This is where many a tear has to fall. This is where the legends were made. The stage would have been right about here. Little Richard walks in and drops up to the piano, which would have been right about here, and he started singing one of his popular songs that he did in his road show with the Upsetters. The lyrics were kind of suggestive and kind of risque. Womp bam a loo bam ba lom bam boom tutti frutti, good booty, tutti frutti, good booty, tutti frutti, good booty. A womp bam a loo bam ba lom bam boom. And Bumps Blackwell heard the song and he said, "Man, this is what we've been waiting for."
Little Richard and Tutti Frutti.
But the real original lyrics to Tutti Frutti is Tutti Frutti, good booty. If it's tight, it's all right. And if it's greasy, it makes it easy.
Oh. When they got back in the studio, Dorothy Labastry, another great songwriter, was in the studio, and she suggested they use some hipster jargon that was really popular during the 50s, and that was all Rudy, all right, all Rudy. So she said, well, that rhymes with Tutti Frutti, so it's Tutti Frutti, all Rudy. Womp bam a loo bam. Lum bum bum, got a gal named Daisy. She almost drives me crazy. Got a gal named Daisy.
The beauty of his delivery, it was free. It was wild.
Knows how to love me, yes indeed. Boy, you don't know what.
It was not Patty Page. It was not Perry Como. You've got a taste of black vernacular. You realize this is a whole other language. And it was exciting.
This is what they call doing your own thing time.
Do you always dress like that, or?
Every day I go to the grocery store like this and people turn around. When I walked in the airport here in London today, a man dropped his cup of coffee.
In 56, Richard notched up multiple hits as young America was entranced by his extravagant performance and extraordinary appearance.
man, he brought it out. He was the guy. Liberace didn't know nothing till he saw Little Richard.
He looked so different with all that hair and everything like that. Hair on his head and the pancake makeup.
He had some makeup. Not that thick.
Long, tall, salad shoes, big speech guy, everything that Uncle John need, oh baby.
She's supposed to wear makeup, just just like when you toast your bread, I put sugar in your coffee, you're supposed to add a little touch to it.
Yes, I must remember that.
Yes, God.
I met Little Richard. We was in East Point, Georgia, and he come on the stage. He's a ladies and gentlemen, the prettiest two guys in the world. He said, me and Bobby Rice. And it just, I'll never forget that. I wish he'd have said handsome. Oh, man.
Go, man, go. I got a gal that I love, so I'm ready.
But Little Richard kept them guessing. With a string of songs from The Girl Can't Help It to Ready Teddy, celebrating the women in his life.
Going to the corner, pick up my sweetie pie. She's my rock and roll baby, she's the apple of my eye. Now the dungaree dog, I headed for the gym to the soccer ball. The judge really jumping, the cats are going wild. The music really fit my deeds, the crazy style. I'm ready.
I was a disc jockey, and I was playing his music. Tutti Frutti, Lordy Miss Claudia, all the big hits he had. And I didn't know he was gay.
Oh, he was. Yeah, he is. He's gay. He can be. You know? He invited me, but I said, no, thank you. I said, no, that's not for me. That was quite a time back there at the Paramount Theater. All of us were working together, and things were going on, man. We were all kids.
Just as Fats Domino's innocent charm had won over a young white audience in an era of segregation, Richard, from the early days, traded on his flamboyant personality to overcome the color bar in the South.
We would play white clubs, and we had to dress like a bunch of gay guys, so we wasn't a threat. The white promoters didn't want us to mess with the white girls down south. That's the strategy he used, introduced rock and roll to the southern states. Walking on stage, switching, walking across the stage, and a lot of people would say, here come Richard and his sisters. Very smart. He knew how to get the audience to love him and stuff like that.
When she walks by, the mean folks getting gross.
But Little Richard also stood out and caught the ear of young America by building his hits on a rhythm that deviated from the standard R&B swing beat that was the foundation of rock and roll.
Little Richard's beats are, I would even say, radically different from like Bill Haley and the Comets, which is a very swing beat. It's down rock around the clock tonight, that sort of, that just, the emphasis is on the 2 and the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Whereas Lucille is and it hits on the 1 and the 3.
It's just something you feel. It feels exciting.
You won't do your sister's will. Lucille, you won't do your sister's will.
I remember one day, Ricky was looking at me. This guy got something in his mind. He said, Charles, we're going to the train station in Macon, Georgia on 5th Street. we're gonna follow this train as it move along, and we're just gonna listen to the sound of the train. I say, okay. And the train picked up speed, so it went. He said, Joe. I said, what? He said, what kind of notes are those? I said, Richard, those are 8 notes. He said, when we have rehearsal tomorrow at my house, I want you to play that beat behind me, and I'm gonna be playing the same thing on piano. I said, okay. Sound like a damn earthquake.
And of course, the way they used to record with 1 or 2 microphones up in the air, it just sounds like all one thing. And that just has a way of getting at you. It sort of marks out the way that teenagers felt at the time. You know, what are you rebelling against? I don't know, what do you got? But we're going to do it, and we're going to do it now.
While trains inspired Little Richard, America in the 50s was a nation expanding its love affair with the car. The auto industry gaining power through government closure of public transport and a massive plan to extend America's highways.
This is the American dream of freedom on wheels. An automotive age, traveling on time-saving superhighways.
Cars were like a major part of the culture. Drag racing and teenagers going out in their own cars. This wasn't happening before.
Well, there's plenty of speed here.
The design of cars changed as well, with more powerful engines like the mass-produced V8 Ford, and styling taking on chrome plating, 2-tone colors, and rocket-age streamlining and fins.
Sam Phillips recorded a record by Jackie Brenston called Rocket 88.
V8 motor is smart and designed like convertible top and the gas don't mind. Sports with me,
Rocket 88 was a model of Oldsmobile car. It was the first American car that had 2-tone colors. Blue, I remember a powder blue and a navy blue, and that in the ghetto was hot stuff. It's like new Nikes would be today.
The whole idea of a love song to the car, I'm going to pick you up for a date. We're going to be free to be ourselves, go where we want to go, do what we want to do, and no one has to know.
Step in my rocket and don't be late, baby. We're pulling out about half-past 8. Going round the corner and...
The next car record to ride high in the charts came from an unlikely source. A 28-year-old ex-hairdresser with an ear for blues and country, going by the name of Chuck Berry, who in the summer of '55 motivated up the migrant corridor from St. Louis to Chicago and Chess Records
in the wee wee hours
with a blues song called Wee Wee Hours.
That's when I think of you.
But what caught the ear of label head Leonard Chess was not Chuck's blues, but the other song on his demo. An adaptation of Bob Wills' Western swing song, Ida Red.
My family was always looking for what was new and cutting edge. You know, my father's nickname was the Foot Stomper, so I know his foot started going.
And at Chess Records, Chuck's song went through a rewrite, starting with its title.
Lamp on the table, a picture on the wall, there's the pretty sofa, and that's not all.
was motivating over the hill. I saw Maybelline in a coupe de ville. A Cadillac rolling on an open road. Nothing outrun my V8
The story goes that in the studio, there was a Maybelline cosmetic package. They came up with the name Maybelline, and they recorded it.
Maybelline, why can't you be true? Oh, Maybelline, why can't you be true? You done started back doing the thing you used to do.
Chuck Berry is the Shakespeare of rock and roll.
Cadillac pulled up the 104, before got hot and wouldn't do no.
Maybelline is about him chasing a beautiful woman who's in a Cadillac, and he's trying to catch up with her.
Rainwater blowing all under my hood. I knew that was doing my motor good. Maybelline, why can't you be true?
He was talking about the wind was coming in, the rain was coming down, but all that could be good for his motor. He said, keep it cool off, because he's driving so fast. You know, then he had to look out his window, and she was right there too.
The motor cooled down, the heat went down, and that's when I heard the highway sound.
What a story, what a mind.
110 and a half a mile ahead. Cadillac looking like a set of steel, and I caught Maybelline at the top of the hill. Maybelline!
There's a kind of ambiguity there because you don't know if she's a white girl or a black girl. Also, there's a class dimension. He's driving a V8 Ford, and she's driving a Cadillac Coupe de Ville. That's a rich person's car. You know, that's dangerous. In 1955, that's really dangerous.
Chuck Berry, I think, is the best rock and roll songwriter. I don't think there was anybody like him before. He came up with a different word for every note. There was a word for each note, which was not like blues records. Chuck Berry doesn't repeat. It's like, deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, we're back up in the woods among the evergreens. There stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny B. Good, who never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play the guitar just like a ringing a bell. I mean, that's a whole story right there. And then go, 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 Johnny, go. So that's when he comes into the chorus, but every note is a word.
Deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, we're back up in the woods among the evergreens. There stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny B. Good, who never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play a guitar just like a ringing a bell. Go, 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 Johnny, go, go.
Before Chuck Berry, most everybody strummed their guitars in a delicate manner. And all of a sudden, here comes Chuck Berry, man, and he's kicking butt. And he's not strumming, he's hitting that baby.
It didn't have to play just one role as just being a music maker. It was a personality that he would play with.
But Chuck was no spring chicken. He'd been round the block and cut an almost avuncular figure in this white teenage world.
I was very young. I was 13 when Chuck Berry came to chess. In my eyes, he was extraordinarily eccentric. One day, my dad said, take Chuck across the street, buy him some lunch. We sat down in the booth, and he ordered strawberry shortcake as a starter. And the main course after, it was he's just a very unique individual. He had robbed a gas station, he had done jail time when he was a teenager, he knew the hard knocks of it. But as I grew older, I was fascinated how he knew what was happening with white teenagers riding around in an automobile. Black teenagers weren't driving cars in 1955. It was before civil rights. That's the thing about Chuck. He was very highly motivated to make it. Somehow he was able to tap into what white teenagers were doing, their lifestyle, how much different they're living than the black kids. That's the market. That's what I want to get into.
Chuck was able to see the teenage experience and sing a song directly to your experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Berry. She's singing. She's got the grown-up blues.
patches and lipstick. She's sporting high heel shoes. Oh, but tomorrow morning she'll have to change her train and do 360 and back in class again.
Chuck's songs were the first to explore the teen experience, catching the moment a young America walked a line between parental control and dolled-up, libidinous, four-on-the-floor freedom on a highway to who knows where. Despite being hatched in a divided country, the music through stealth and accident had stolen the soul of young America.
'Cause they'll be rocking on Bandstand, Philadelphia, PA.
Just as the song describes, rock and roll would spread like a gathering storm from the South to every corner of the U.S.
All over St. Louis, way down in New Orleans.
Providing the newborn teenager with their own fashions and language.
It's fancy, man, it's fancy. You guys dig that music.
And their own culture and identity. And through rhythm and poetry held the promise of a very different America. But that isn't how the story ends.
Man, here we go. We're gonna ruin America with this job.
The wonderful young Everly Brothers. Once the music hits, it's like smoking a weed. Changes things. I think Pat Boone is old enough to be their grandfather.
He didn't have the soul.
What was that?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
He's interesting. He might wring his neck sometimes.
You don't ever say that to me again.
This vulgar, animalistic, nigger Presley record